speak about drought in the Caribbean islands. It has significant effect upon our environment, our economy, our human health. And there's some key areas that it would influence. Now, first of all, we look at the water supply. Now, I commented to my colleague earlier that in the 80s, drought was not something that we really spoke about. But then come onto the 90s and into the 2000s, then we started to see the real impact, the real effect of what drought actually looked like. Because then is when we started seeing things like rationing of water, where you will have water certain time of the day. Sometimes you have water all day. You don't have any water. And so you have to ration that water. We reached to the point where even schools were affected, where projects have to be developed where you put water tanks in the schools instead of just having taps. Also to conserve water. When I was growing up, we had the water taps all along. Every street had a water tap. But because things got so drastic, government decided they're going to take up all the water taps. Because then everyone have water in their home. Agriculture, of course, is also affected by the drought because predominantly, especially when it comes to the whole Caribbean, it is rain-fed agriculture that we practice. So we depend on the rainfall. If there's no rain, production goes down. So you find governments started doing things like distributing water tanks. This is a picture of what happened in Saint Kitts distributing water tanks. But many times the intervention can only go so far. And it's also limited to the funds that you have, the funding you have, also limited also to the support that you have. For Saint Kitts, we distributed tanks. Notice I said we distributed tanks, not water. Bear that in mind, we distributed tanks, not water. Our landscape started changing over time, and we found that the ecology started changing. And so from our lush green, if you see the Saint Kitts flag, you'll see that one portion of it is green, and it actually represents our lush green landscape. But if things continue where it's going with the drought issue, we might have to turn that from green to brown. Because we find our terrain starts looking a lot like this for longer periods of time during the year. Next one. Also our public health. When there is drought, the place is dry, there's a lot of dust in the air. Not only that, you have an incidence of wildfires. Not just forest fires, but grasslands will also start burning. The thing is that we are talking about human activity, and many times in these grasslands and these areas of burning, persons would have done all sorts of refuge inside there. And so when this burning is happening, then you realize the fumes that is coming off, right? Adverse effect on one's health as well. Our economic impact. The economic impact of drought means that you have less water. And so water is actually what drives lives. It's what drives livelihood. So even the small cottage industries that make your jams and juices at home, or even the industrial producers, could you imagine construction without water? And construction in the Caribbean is one of the booming sectors. So imagine if what would happen if we have no water just to mix up the concrete. What about we invite persons, a lot of our SIDS depend a lot on tourism. And so our hotels, our resorts and everything like that, where imagine that we don't have water. Like your lovely cocktail, or even your meals, even your recreation in the pool will have to be curtailed. And therefore we see the great impact on our economy that drought will have. In our small geographic states, we are particularly vulnerable because of our drinking water. Now, in the Caribbean, our fresh drinking water we boast of, but we must understand that the islands in the seas, it's fresh water floating on salt water. And when you have a drought, it means your fresh water level is going down. And the minute you touch salt water, you get what we call saltwater intrusion. That well is no longer and will never ever be able to be utilized. So therefore it is imperative that we safeguard what we have. Now in the case of Saint Kitts and Nevis, the government started looking at avenues and how to combat the issue of drought. And so the government started doing things like earthen dams. This is like digging massive holes in the ground, lining them with polyethylene material, and this is basically water harvesting when the rain falls, so that you're going to have water forever. This water harvesting, yes, that one, this, what happened is that this has setbacks as well. You dig, rain falls, water, but it's a big open pot, over 3 elements. So when the sun comes out and the wind is strong, all of that evaporates. Now in a drought situation, in a matter of days, these dams are empty. So really it's good for a rainy day, but not without the rain. So therefore that brings us to what our next course of action is. Where we ensure that adequate funding, capacity building is what is needed for us to combat the issue of drought. And so with the soil care, phase 2 is where we going to see these actions taking place in Saint Kitts. And I'm going to zoom in on one component, which is the drought action, which is being carried out with AISLM, involving the JEF, as well as FAO and the government of Saint Kitts and Nevis. Next one. Here, what is being proposed is a site in Browne, which is one of the hardest hit areas when it comes to drought. And in this area, we're going to focus on the farming system. Now we are wayfed. And the government is reluctant to give water from the domestic supply for obvious reasons. And so we're proposing now to enhance that, the system that we have right now. Presently, it's the open dam. It goes to a filter because of debris and everything. Then it goes directly to the fields. Now, let's go directly to what happened. Here, there's something new that is added. It has the open dam, the filter, then there is a massive storage tank. This reservoir will then, as rainfall, act as only as a glove. Catches water, but it channels it to closed storage. Further than that, on the individual farming plots, I will have additional storage tanks because crops use different proportions of water. Different farmers use different proportions of water. So each one will have these storage tanks, and then they will be able to do their drip irrigation. So that is what our drought action under soil care 2. Now, what will that enable us to do with this pilot project? When it comes to the transformative initiative, then we can build this out around the island. So it's, in essence, we're building a water system for our agriculture sector. So that the spring water, the well water, and even the desal water can go to the domestic and industrial use. But our critical food security will be safeguarded by its own system for water. Thank you very much.